you know, create the finished drawing that I'm going to do. I'm going to create something similar to this. But I'm going to use this direction. So now I got to go to my gesture stuff. And this is where I start working my character. Let's just say he's had a hard day at work, you know, and this is the pose that I'm putting him in. And I like just seeing this guy from the waist up too, so I'll probably stop the illustration about here. This guy does a drink here. You know, and I think for the sake of the you know, staging and silhouette, I'm going to actually move that. Make sure the character works first before I start placing things. And so now I'm going to indicate some folds. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at these and just basically caricaturing them. I don't want all of them in there, because if I do, then it starts to get really too busy. And it depends on what style you're working in, but it can get really busy really fast if you're not careful. Okay, so yeah, I really like this, you know, where I've kind of created already on this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and just start developing this one now. And you know what I can do now at this point is, normally what I would do is probably just clean this up a little more, like do another pass on top of it. But I kind of have a good vision of what I want it to look like already. So I'm just going to jump right into the finishing part of it. Because after you've done it like quite a number of times, you can actually start to see things before you're even done. And you know, there's some wood grain here. I might indicate that in my illustration. Yeah, I'll put that, restage that drink in. Somewhere right here. Or maybe I can put it back here. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Put it back there. A little bit more back to the cranium there. So you can see how I'm constantly reworking stuff and going back into it. I'm never just satisfied with what I'm seeing right off the bat. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm just going to drag this over. I'm going to create a new one. a new image, just so I can have another image where I could keep this drawing on it, because I still want to reference it as I finished up the other one. Like I said, this isn't what I normally would do, but this is for the purpose to put it all on one screen. I would show you. I could either print it out or do something else in order to keep it up still, so I can still reference it. Okay, but now that I have my initial design down, right, I already know what I kind of want, and I'm not into the textures yet. So what I'm going to do now is actually just take this to this, because I don't want to see anything else, because now it'll just get all distracting. Now I want to. This is where I really want my design sensibilities to come into play. And this is where your style is going to take over too. This is where you really start to figure some stuff out. I don't think I want him with the shirt that, that I was saying. I think he's probably got his tie down, at this point of the day in the drawing that I'm drawing him in. Okay, so here's where I'm at right now. This is where my rough stage. So what I would do now at this point is take this opacity pretty down. I don't really want to see too much of it, because I want to start something fresh. And I'm gonna take a brush that I want to design with, right? And now I can pick, like, okay, so this is where it varies. If you want to just do this in values and all monochromatic values, then you don't have to be too crazy with the color. But I'm gonna do this in color because I can show you guys a little bit more of how I use values and warms and cools and all that to help help with the character. So first thing I'm gonna do is take a skin color and start blocking in the skin. And so normally I find it in the warm stage here. Not too saturated, and I can always adjust this later, but I'll start with this color for now. And I'm just going to start blocking in the shapes. So now I'm it's different now, because now I'm designing with shapes. So it's going to change the character a little bit, so I don't want to go too different from what I had before, but I do want to be open to trying new things. And I'm being pretty graphic with this. And this is where styles are going to vary. Styles are going to definitely vary on how you take characters finish. And all this, everything I'm showing you right now is my technique. This is stuff that I've picked up over the years of how I've decided to start developing characters early on. And I change it all the time too. Like, I won't always work like this. Is something I'm just doing right now, but maybe sometimes I don't want to do it like this. Sometimes I just want to do a line drawing. So what I did was I just grabbed the magic wand tool, because I closed the shape and I selected it. And a quick way to fill it now is I can go to modify, expand it by, because I work at 300 pixels, per inch, 6 should be plenty. If it was 150, like half of 300, then probably 3 would be plenty, but because I did 6. Now you can see how it just expanded my whole selection. So what I'm going to do now is hit Option Delete. By the way, I'm on a Macintosh, and if you couldn't tell by the menus and all that stuff, but I'm going to hit Option Delete to fill with the foreground color, and then deselect. Okay, and now I have this. You can see I have this flat shape, and since I still have my skin color selected, I'm going to go ahead and move down to the hands, and any skin that I see, I want to go ahead and just fill it in now. And again, I'm going to close off that shape, because I'm going to use a selection tool later to close the gaps and fill in the shape. Okay, so I'm going to grab it, magic wand tool, select it, modify, expand. These are all just little shortcuts and ways to like just fill the shape in faster. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, because that other hand's behind and it's still a skin color, if I just start doing this and it's going to just make the shape really muddy, I'm going to create a new layer and darken this layer just a little bit, because I want to be able to manage it separately. And so you see how the value is a little darker now. So now I have two separate layers I can work from. So I zoom out and you see how what I've got going on so far. Okay, so now let me go ahead and I'm just going to block in the rest of the values. Here too, so the neck, I'm going to go ahead and not as dark, but do it. I'm going to, since I'm here with it, I might as well start doing the neck. And you can see how I'm not sticking exactly to my line drawing underneath. This is I'm creating, like, I'm looking at gesture and finding new things as I start to develop this even further. Okay, so now for the hair color, and usually I don't work in a lot of layers. I try and limit my layers so it doesn't get too busy, but I'll create a new layer on top of this and pick out a hair color now. And I'm going to darken, because I want the value change from here to be pretty drastic for this guy. So nice red, brown. Yeah, that's a nice color. And then if I zoom in, I can, work on the details a little bit closer. And I just made my brush size a little smaller right there by, using the little key that looks like this. I don't know what that's called, sorry. But by using that plus or minus, that makes the one on the left or the one on the right makes the brush size bigger or smaller on a Macintosh. And I know all these same shortcuts are in a PC, I just don't know them because I don't work on a PC. But if you want to look them up, you can easily do that in Google. Okay. So now I can use my brush again, modify, expand it, and make it a little bigger. There. So now I'm doing it a couple times so you get the idea of how I use that. It saves me a lot of time as opposed to having to fill the whole shape in. And now you can see how I kind of overlapped here, so I'll go in and kind of clean that up a little bit. Go back and clean up the shape a little bit. All right. So I want to put the eyebrows in now at this point since it's the hair color. So I'm going to turn off the skin layer real quick and put that in. Okay. And this, since it's such a small shape, it's easy to just you know, just fill it in really quick as opposed to going up. Probably saves me time to just fill this one in. And I'll go ahead and indicate a little bit of the other side too, just to give a little bit more depth there. And one thing I like to do with hair is to add a little bit more, you know, nicer of a silhouette. Maybe I'll do a few loose hairs as well. And I just try different shapes. And when I'm doing to take it away, just Control Z, just to, you know, I do it with stroke and see if I like it. If I do, then I leave it. If I don't, then I'll just redo it. And you know, the more I do this, the more it'll feel like it's looser hair or whatever. So, and like I said, he is, you know, again, what's the character? He's sitting at a bar, he's having a drink after work. That's the pose I'm putting him in. So his hair's definitely gonna, you know, he's had a long day, so it's not gonna be nice and upkept. Okay, so now I have these 3 layers going for me. So next thing I want to do is put a jacket color. And like I said, let's go back to this now. I like this reference here. I like this. So, but the base color for this for me is I'm going to say it's like a tan. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in with the values later and add that later. And I'll probably work in the same layer I'm using the hair. Okay, so now I got to pick that tan color. Make sure, let's test it, see how it is with that value. It's a little too dark. A little lighter than that. Yeah, something like that. That'll work. Okay. Just really quickly outline this. And this is where the wrinkles were pulling on the jacket. You know, I don't want this to be a nice straight line, so I'll make it a little rough. And actually for this, I think I'm going to go ahead and move it behind the skin because I think it'll be easier as opposed to having to draw around all this area right here. I'll be able to just drop it behind that and then just clean the shape up to make it go where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, what I just drew. I'm going to cut it and paste it, and it creates a new layer, so I'm going to drop it below the skin and the neck as well. Now I'm going to move it back to where I had it. And now I'm working below the skin, so now I can just turn this off real quick to make sure I keep it closed. And I'm going to draw through the skin through here because you're not going to see that. There. So I just filled that shape in now. So now I have this is what I have so far. Let's turn the hair on. If I could turn this off, you can see what I've got going on so far. It's all flat shapes. Nothing's got any values to it or any gradations or anything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and clean up this shape a little bit. Thinking about the design of the character still. just want to clean this little edge up here, so it has to have a little gap. I'm going to zoom in and just clean that up really quick. All right. So now I want to go ahead and put some of the features on. I have my general shapes blocked in, right? You see I haven't spent too much time on this so far. It's just been blocking shapes in so far. I'm going to put the features. I'll put those on a separate layer as well. Turn this off, turn this off. And I'm going to just go ahead and grab a white-ish color. Get a little value because I don't like the eyes too white, but now I'm going to put the eyes in on another layer. Like that. Okay. I'm going to block that eye shape in. And then depending on the style of eyes I want to do, I can develop this even further. What I'm going to do now is clean up this shape just a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and select my eye color. I'm going to go with like a nice muted kind of hazel color. Maybe a little bit more cooler than that though. Okay, and then by clicking this button, it makes the layer a mask. So now I can just freely draw out here, and it doesn't draw outside of the shape that I created, which helps a lot and saves a lot of time from having to be too careful. Okay. Because they're color eyes, I'm going to have a variation value difference here. And now what I'm going to do, since I have, that all masked off, what I can do now is get like a soft brush and, lower the opacity. And I can use a shortcut by just hitting the number 3 too. So if I just want 30%, then that gives me that as well. So I'm going to keep this same value and now darken up here a little bit because I want the shadow to feel like it's coming from the upper lid, just because I want some depth to my character. And I'm going to color the eye slightly too. The white part of the eye, a little bit more of a cooler blue. So now I can turn my skin back now that I have my feature put in there. You can see how it's starting to come together, but that's a little too blue for me. Let's go ahead and take that down. Okay. And then now what I'm going to do, I love this feature. This is what I use a lot. I'll do so basically what I'm doing is I'm holding down Option, and I think it's Alt on a PC. But I'm holding down Option, and I'm going to click this button here, this little icon down here, and then when I click, I can have any of these layers. I can click any of these layers and create but it is a layer adjustment basically is what it is. So I go to, I usually use hue saturate. That was not that one. Hue saturation, and check this box because what it does is it makes this a mask again. And now that that's why I hold down Option so I can get that option to appear. Now I'm gonna, whatever I do is adjusting this, but as a unit, as one value. So I'm gonna take this value down, slide it a little cooler, just to get a little bit cooler eye color, and then you fill that layer with black. Now anything I painting with white, so make sure white's in the foreground. Anything I painted with white is going to be that value that I just selected. And since I'm working in a low opacity, it lets me control the values pretty strongly. Okay. And then if you work back with black, then you could take some of it away if you went too far with it. And you'll see how I use that a lot. So once I find a spot that I'm happy with, I won't mess with it too much more. I'm just going to go ahead and select these two layers and merge them. And you can do that up here as well. Layer, merge. When you have the two layers, yeah. Group layers or hide layers. Let me select two layers. I'm holding down shift when I do that. Layer. I'm trying to see where merge is. Here's merge layers, down here. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my brush. I'm going to zoom out of this actually, and I want to assess where I'm at now, how it's looking. So now what I want to do is create a little bit of values, a little bit of warmth on the cheek here. It's just something I like to do, but I like it with more of a textured kind of brush. So I have this brush here, and you can create this any way you want, but this is one that I've just managed to use a lot. I just like the look of it. It feels like a dry brush. So now I'm going to mask that layer. I'm going to click that button, click this color, holding down Option or Alt, and now I have that color selected, and I want to barely shift it a little bit more to the warmer color. And now with the low opacity, if you look at just 30%, then I can start to put some of this value in here. It just brings a little warmth to the cheeks when I do this. And because the layer is masked, I can just brush it on the edge of the nose now. You know? And this is where having layers really helps, because you can do things like this without having to be too careful with it. Put a little bit on the forehead too. You know, I always think of it as like, where's the sun hitting this guy the most in the, you know, in the top parts of his head, and then it slowly gradates down. And then another thing, so value-wise, I might darken around the eyes just a little bit. Create a little bit of shadow in here. And maybe I don't want it just to go gray, so I'm actually going to slide this over to a little bit more of a purplish. So I'm slowly working this in here. And I'm overdoing it right now, but I'm going to go back with this color. Now I just hold down Option, select this color, and then go back with it again. If I went too far with it, this helps me like keep it more subtle. And make that edge a little softer, a little smoother. Okay, so you see what's going on now. All right. And so now what I'm going to do is go back to my drawing brush that I've been using, back to 100%, and go to my hair layer. And really darken this. Grab that hair color. All right, and so now what I'm going to do is create a new layer also on top of this layer, and I'm going to select this color again and create a color that I'm going to use for my lines, because I don't want to do everything with just value. I want to keep it still somewhat graphic, so I'm going to use a lot of lines here. This is where I can get a lot of these lines back in that I created. I'll show you how that's looking. So you see, you start to get all that detail back in. And you see how much that's changed his character already. It's changed it quite a bit, actually. One of the things I want to do, this is why it helps to keep the lines on a separate layer, because I'll go back to the skin now. And I'll do this all the time. I'll just find things as I go. I want to get a softer brush, not the textured one this time. I'm just going to get a really soft brush, lower the opacity, take this color, and then get a cooler color. So I'll desaturate it. And I work in HSB, which you can easily just do right here. Just go to HSB sliders, because then it's easy to just desaturate and darken colors. So I'll select this color, desaturate, darken a little bit. Make sure that's masked off. And then I want to give it a little bit of like the 5 o'clock shadow. And you see how that does add to his character a little bit. It makes him look a little more disgruntled and beat up a little bit. So now I'll go back to my line. And again, this only applies if that is part of his character, in which in this case I want it to be. So now I'm going to go back and put some lines in his hair too, to add some visual interest in here as well. Take a lighter value. And maybe I'll go faster with these lines. It doesn't really matter. Just this is going to be your style, the way you design your characters. However you want to draw this stuff. This is just my take on it. And then I'll take this and maybe get a little darker value too as well. Put some darker lines in there. And I'm not liking the dark ones, so I'm going to go ahead and just select this color and go brighter again. This time a little bit more, not as drastic, something like that. Yeah, this feels a little bit more true to what I'm looking for. So what I can do now is go to the hair layer and then mask it off. Get my soft brush. I'm going to select this color and darken the edges of the hair. Make the brush a little bigger and slowly just brush it up a little bit, just to give a little bit more to the texture of it. So you see that? Okay, back to my, I'm gonna go to the skin layer now. There's something I want to add some lip color, warm it up a little bit. So you see how that helps stop, it keeps it from being too graphic at that point. So I'm going to do is go back to this neck layer, and now I want to blend. I want the edge here still, but I don't want it as much here. So I'll go back to my soft brush. I'm going to start to bring that skin color back this way. Maybe I want a little bit more of this depth from a little more shadow from the chin here. Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to my drawing brush now. You know, and usually when I do these illustrations, I put more time into the face for sure. Put a little highlight there. So that helps a lot. Okay. Now I want to go back to my drawing and I just want to see what I've been doing. I want to see, okay. I think I'm going to put a little bit of a sweater vest in there on this guy. I'll make it like a navy blue. I could put, as long as it's above the skin layer, I could put it on the same layer because it's not overlapping with any of the skin. So I'm going to go ahead and put that navy blue sweater right here. And I'll just fill this in by hand. And then underneath this layer, on the skin layer, I'll put like a white t-shirt color. So I can turn my stuff back on now and see what I'm actually working with. I need that lighter. So I can go ahead and clean this shape up now. Alright, so you see how slowly the details are coming into this? So now I have this weird shape here. I'm going to go back to where that layer's at. And this is, so this is what would be showing here is underneath the neck, so I need to create another layer under this one. I'll work on the jacket layer. Select this color, and this is the color where I'm going to put, you know, this is his chest. That's showing under the t-shirt. And then maybe here, this is where I can I don't like how graphic that ends up here, so I'll erase some of that. And I'll just go into it with this here. Blend the two. And maybe instead of doing it with value, I can do it with line. So I'm just blending those two colors. So go to my line layer now. Select that line color I was using. And then stop it there, as opposed to just crashing into the jacket like it was. Maybe I'll add something like an indication of the neck muscle there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm I'm actually just stylistically, I'm going to cheat the texture right now because I want to show you guys quickly how I start to add texture to this jacket. And remember, I told you I want to do that plaid. Making sure I'm working in the right layer. Because I'm underneath the skin. The foreground, I'm marking, it's easy for me to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to cheat the texture and make it just flat. But, you know, usually I would probably follow the contours of the jacket, but that just takes a little bit longer. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to show you how I do it in a flat way. So let's go back to that texture, and here's what I'm seeing. So I see like a dark brown and a light tan and a red. I don't want to put too many colors in there because then it starts to get too busy. So let's start with the dark brown. I'm going to go on my jacket layer, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a mask again and go ahead and find a dark brown color. Not too brown. Don't want to take too much attention away from the character. Okay, and I'm mostly noticing the straight down lines, right? The straight vertical lines that are on the pattern. But see how what I'm talking about doesn't just go straight, it's not flat on him. But I know a lot of, you know, shortcuts, this works. Okay, so let's go ahead and start drawing in my lines. And by making that layer a mask, look how easy it is for me to just block these shapes in. Clean that up a little bit, select the other color back. Okay. All right, so you see how it's really cheated, you know, but I like it sometimes for this instance. And now I'm going to take something a little bit more tannish redder color. A little bit more gold. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and next to every brown line, I'm going to create a tan line right here. So I'm just basically, what I'm doing now is I'm caricaturing that pattern. I don't want to be too real to it. Otherwise, I'll just grab a picture of that pattern and slap it on this in Photoshop. Okay. Now pick a red color. And probably lighten the opacity. Saturation. Thin out that line a little bit and go straight down the middle of here. All right. Okay, so now I have my straight downs going, right? So what I want to do now is I'll change my my brush into a different mode now, and I'm going to go with overlay. Each one of those does different something else, but so I'll select this color, and now I want to do these lines across. And that's actually too saturated, so I'll just play with that. I'll go to soft light. Yeah, that's much better. Get a little bit bigger with that brush. And by adding, textures like this and things to your drawings, you're creating a lot of visual interest, but you're also creating a lot of authenticity to your character, because it starts to feel a little bit more authentic, and you can start to feel the patterns of the time. And that's where, like, really doing your research, because you can, really start to nail down what type of clothing characters wore during that time period, and it really helps you become more authentic with your designs. So I'm going to take like a redder color now, and I'm just going to overlay this. And this is pretty quickly I'm able to quickly do this just because I have that selected now. So there's what I've got so far. And you can see it's pretty busy, but if I squint my eyes, it's pretty busy on this guy too. That's why the face has to stay pretty clear and readable. So what I'm going to do now is I want to put the lines in for all this stuff here. And I'm going to go to my line layer to do it. And this is where I'm going to create, holding down Option again, hue saturation, a darker version of that, and up to saturation just a little bit. Okay. So instead of working on the line layer, actually I'm going to work on this hue saturation layer. So I'm making sure that's clicked, paint with white, make sure I got my line drawing tool. It's still going to keep it a separate layer, so I can always tweak it if I have to. So but what I'm going to do is turn that off and on and kind of eyeball it and know that it starts right about here. And why ended up not painting? Oops, sorry, I'm still painting in soft light. Okay. And then by keeping that layer, all separate like that, I can really I don't have to worry about changing colors for every part of the value that I go over. So now by double clicking this, I can adjust the lines if they're not reading enough for me. And I think I'm going to lower the opacity of this because it's starting to get too busy. So I'll take the hue saturation, lighten it a bit, maybe saturate it, desaturate, just play around with it a little bit to, because I feel like it's hard to make out the shapes. Let's try levels. Okay, then image just use that. Anytime you mess with the levels, it always tends to saturate up your drawing. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is make another layer holding down Option, hue saturation, and I'm going to do the same thing, darken it, saturate. Maybe I'll slide this, maybe just a little bit warmer or cooler. There we go. That actually helps. Mute it down a little bit. Okay, so I just made it white and to take off anything that I've been doing, and I'm gonna use let's use my blending brush that I created for myself. I can go back to this now. So what I'm gonna do is start to pull out the shapes a little bit using a lower opacity. Okay. And this will help me break off the shapes a little bit more too. Help simplify the shapes that I was trying to achieve before. And then go back with the opposite color now, with a little bit back with the black color, and pull back out some of the shapes. Okay, so what I want to do is, because I put a shadow on this jacket, I want to go back to the neck and the shirt. I think what I'll do is find that shirt layer, merge it all with the neck. I'm going to merge these three layers because I'm going to create a shadow on the neck going down into the jacket. So hue saturation layer on this one now, holding down Option, darken it. A little cooler. And then in a lower opacity, paint that shadow back in with white. Now I can go ahead and darken this too. And then to clean this up, I'll go back in with the black and go back in there and get it out where I don't want it. And maybe soften this edge a little bit. Okay, so you can see what I've got going now. By turning this off, this is where basically my drawing's headed. And it's not far, depending how much more I want to add to this, it's not far from being too close to done. I probably wouldn't take it, too much more further than this. Okay, add some more lines. There's some more lines I want to add to this jacket actually. So again, I'm going to be painting with white. And I'm just experimenting where I want fold lines to come from, if I want any at all. I don't think I really need one up here, but I'm just trying anyways. Yeah, something like that, that'll work. Okay. So I'll go back up to my line layer, select that color again, and start to put some details on this hand. A little bit darker for the background hat. Actually, I'm going to go back to my reference to see what that hand pose is doing. Yeah, so I had it wrong. I want to make the fingers going the other way. And that's why you should always use reference. Okay. So this is it's in a pretty good spot now. One thing I might like to do to add like another finishing touch to this character is maybe like add a little backlight over here, or maybe another cooler color that's hitting him from the back or something, just to kind of make him feel like he's part of the environment. So what I could do here is grab this, and now that I'm pretty happy with my line work, you know, you can see how that value helps a lot. I'm pretty happy with my line work. Actually, let me just make sure I am happy before I do anything. Let me try something just to see what that looks like. Okay. So that's the cool thing about Photoshop. You can try a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's looking, I like that. That's pretty cool. Okay. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and flatten all this. Select all 3 layers and merge them. Now they're all in one layer. Got the jacket on a whole nother layer. So I'm going to go ahead and now hold down Option again, hue saturation, and then create another adjustment layer where I can actually change the light. Let's just say it's like a cool color. And I'm gonna adjust that right now, most likely. But for now, I'll fill it with black. Filling it with the background color. I'm gonna get a soft brush. And then make it a little bigger. And because it's on the mask, I can start painting that color in where I want it. And I kind of want it in his hair too, so I'll have to do it for his hair as well. I'm going to go ahead and merge the hair and the line layer together because I'm happy with where that's at. I need to adjust both of them together. So now I'm going to make an adjustment for that and create like another cool color. Somewhere there. You'll see how this adds a little bit of depth to it. Just gives a little bit more visual interest, right? Because I want it to look good on the page. That's the whole point of this, is to make it look good on the page. Granted, what I do, this doesn't get seen in the film, but it will help inspire an idea for the director to maybe they'll get something out of it. That looks really cool. So this is basically my blocking process, and you see how I take it to finish. Once I get it to a level where I'm pretty happy with it, I can go in there and mess with the values even more. Like now that I'm happy with where this is at, I'll go ahead and just merge that. No reason to keep that layer. And then I'll go ahead and merge this too. Go ahead and merge that. I'm pretty happy with everything now, so I'm going to go ahead and merge everything, make it pretty flat. And I'm going to go ahead and create another hue saturation layer. And I'm going to get a little darker in the areas where I want it to get a little darker. Okay. Taking it down to 20% now. Painting with white. I'm going to darken this even more. Just to get the darks in there. And I might put some, shadow under the nose as well.